Since you've been on the traditional startups VC side and now you're on the gaming VC side, is there a certain type of mind shift that you have to do in order to invest in gaming companies versus investing in traditional tech companies? Like how does it work? Is there any difference in the first place?
There are some differences, but they're not, I think, as deep as people think. Like one of the differences people will talk about investing in, and let's be clear, because there's investing in game studios, like people making games, and then there's investing in gaming technology, gaming platforms, tools, like there's a lot of ancillary stuff that's still gaming, but is not game studios specifically. So if we're specific about game studios, investing in game development, right? This is still very binary usually in its outcome. It's still a very hit-driven business, closer probably to investing in movies or theater shows than it is investing in more traditional tech. Because if I invest in a more traditional tech startup, right, even if the product doesn't sell, whatever was built, there's a good chance that the IP that was developed, the technology, the software, whatever, the hardware, whatever that what was built, there's some value potentially there to someone. There's a good chance my investment won't go to zero. I may just break even. I may be able to sell this to a bigger player, for the value of the technology. But the reality is there's some inherent value there. With a game, if a game doesn't sell, if no one plays the game, the value is basically zero. It truly is quite binary. And so it's a small difference, and I don't put too much emphasis on it because I actually don't think the difference is that significant. But I think with anything that's hit-driven, and I would put most of early-stage venture in that, not just gaming, but anything that's hit-driven, you need to have a really comprehensive portfolio strategy. The more hit-driven the sector you're investing in, the more your portfolio diversification matters. And what I mean by that is, if all you do is invest in crypto games and crypto games on mobile, and that's all you do.
It's the most dynamic environment you can invest in.
But and hey, I'm picking on Animoca here, but if that's all you do and you're wrong about crypto games ever being a thing and crypto games on mobile being a thing, you're going to be wrong in a spectacular way. Versus an investor where I think is smarter to say, okay, let me put some bets in mobile. Let me put some bets in PC. So platform diversification, genre diversification, some shooters, some puzzles, some racing, some whatever, right? So there's multiple ways. Stage diversification even is another way you can, right? So two guys in a garage with an idea for a game versus a game that's maybe ready to be published. You can play on both those ends and still be an early stage investor that's disciplined. And so I think the more hit-driven the nature of what you're investing in is, the more you need to be diversified to make sure, or try and make sure, you end up with that next Fortnite in your portfolio. Yeah. Scale also matters to a certain extent. If you only make 5 investments, the chance of hitting on the next Fortnite's low. If I make 500, well, my chance has gone up pretty significantly.
Exactly. We've seen some reluctance from VCs in the region when it comes to investing in gaming businesses. What do you have to say to these VCs if they are watching us about the gaming business, and how do you compare this to your previous experience in Canada when VC started investing?
Yeah, I think you can't leave it. You can't be at the mercy of a VC who's maybe based in LA or in Miami or in London, right, to decide that they should come invest in a gaming startup in Abu Dhabi. Like I said, you need to prime the pump. That process, like that London VC showing up in Abu Dhabi and investing in a gaming company there, will never happen organically.
Yeah.
Or happen so rarely that it will have no significant impact on the ecosystem.
Or if they're here, they're actually raising as well.
See, but this is where it's financial tourism again. It's career tourism. Are you here because you care about building the ecosystem here? Or are you here giving lip service in the hopes that Mubadala puts 50 million in your fund?
Yeah.
right? Do you genuinely care about the future of that ecosystem here? Because if the second Mubadala puts 50 million in your fund, you're on a plane back to London, I would argue you probably don't care that much.
Yes, true.
And so there's a bit of financial tourism even on the VC side, not just on the career side,
Right.
individual side. But I think you need to have catalysts for investors to care. And the way you do that, for example, is it could be government directly, but it could be government through essentially government-controlled entities that say, okay, and I've been a big advocate for this. If the government of Abu Dhabi, through some mechanism, writes a $500,000 check into a gaming startup here, whether it's a studio or technology, whatever, right?
Mm.
This is a powerful catalyst. Imagine the pitch to an investor sitting in Silicon Valley. Hey, there's a really cool gaming startup in Silicon Valley. Great team. By the way, we're going to put the first $500,000 or $1 million. Our money is maybe less dilutive. It comes with some subsidies. It comes with some ecosystem benefits. And by the way, because we care about the ecosystem, will be the last money out. Do you want to invest alongside? Do you want to come spend some time here? We've now de-risked this investment massively for you. Well, now this is interesting because for that guy sitting in Silicon Valley, this is an opportunity to juice his returns. He looks good in front of his investors, and he doesn't have to care anymore. The caring becomes less of a requirement because we've done that for him.
Yeah.
We're worrying about the caring part. We're worrying about the commitment part. We're managing the marriage, right?
Yeah.
But that becomes a powerful catalyst for foreign direct investment, which is what you need to put an ecosystem on the map. And Canada, again, great analogy. If Canada had only had Canadian funds investing in Canadian companies,
Yeah, I was surprised when you told me you had foreign investment come into Canada.
because a lot of it was, hey, I'm sitting in Canada, I'll put the first check, I'll be the last money out. The company here is getting 50% of their operational costs covered through these credits and these subsidies. You, Mr. Investor sitting in Silicon Valley, this is a great opportunity for you. Your investment is massively de-risked. The risk calculation changes dramatically. And VCs are not stupid. They're conscious of that.
Yeah.
They look at both sides, the return side and the risk side. And so where government has to play is, I always think about how are you a catalyst and what are you a catalyst for? For example, no one's doing this. Actually, maybe I shouldn't even say on this podcast, but there's a way that governments could be subsidizing gaming companies that almost no one globally is doing. There's maybe one place in the world that's doing this well. That's not OPEX or CAPEX.
Mm.
That would drive direct GDP growth, attract more foreign direct investment.
UA money, user acquisition money, media money. Yeah.
This is an interesting one, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
This is one of those things that, and it's again, this is where my evangelism I think is important, is these are ideas that have to happen for the region to be successful long term. We have to be thinking a bit differently. We have to be creative about the solutions we bring to market. We have to apply those resources efficiently. And that's the challenge, right? Getting the players aligned with that vision.
Yeah, this is from the policymaker's perspective. If we're talking to the VC person that is now like watching and then they stumble upon this episode, what would you tell them as a VC person about like investing in gaming in the region?
My advice would be, don't be financial tourists, right? If you're gonna spend any time here, have a real reason why.
There are existing VCs.
Oh,
I mean,
if you're talking about the ones that are here,
yeah,
already,
exactly.
There are, but they're relatively few and they're relatively small, right? You get like this barbell effect here. You have a few that are very small that are what we call subscale, right? They're not as big as the VCs in the West. And so they have their own challenges. And then you have the opposite end, like the Mubadalas of the world, where the smallest check they want to write is 50 million. Yeah. And so, like, there's a big gap in between that still needs to be filled. Now, my advice for that section that would invest here, is based here, has boots on the ground here, is you still can't go it alone. Like if you don't have deep gaming expertise in house, it doesn't matter what, like, you can't go and expect to make money investing in gaming if you don't have deep expertise. And I mean deep expertise with global networks where you can bring value immediately, right? Like the day that VC writes a check, he can make 2 phone calls, or she can make 2 phone calls, and I've grown the value of that portfolio company. That's still lacking here somewhat. There's not a lot of that yet. And that exists much more. It's much more prevalent in Europe, in the West, in North America, where the VCs have deeper networks, have longer time doing this, have more experience doing this, and can bring more value to those portfolio companies. So I think it's focus on where you can add value, but also figure out why you're investing in gaming and why you want to play in that space here. Have a thesis behind it. I think not enough do it with a deep thesis in mind beyond gaming's cool, gaming's hyped, we should play there. That's interesting, but I always think you have to work backwards from something. You have to have an end goal that you're convinced of. My holodeck thesis, I think that end goal is inevitable. There's nothing, an asteroid could hit the planet. I still think we will end up at holodecks.